My name is Tom J. and my wife's name is Linda. I'm only 5 feet 10 inches and 165 pounds, but I have my advantages. We met in college when I was 23 and she was 21. I was serving in the military while taking classes to get a double degree in economics and accounting, and she was majoring in biology. In short, we were killers, and my specialty was planning and close quarters combat. I graduated at 25, left the Army 2 years later, and married Linda 4 years later and had 2 daughters. We live in a house I grew up in and have owned since my parents moved to Florida. When I was in college, some of our troops assignments gave us the opportunity to earn great rewards, which we split 10 ways so I would have the money to buy the items I needed. Linda and I booked a room at a hotel associated with a dance hall, and she looked stunning in a blue silk dress, 5 feet 6 inches tall with dark hair and a slim figure. We had a nice dinner and had a great time dancing in the ballroom. They danced together and our friend Jum said she was a cheerleader for the team and was engaged to Stevens. After they danced there for a while, I noticed Stevens looking at our table and he stood up and walked towards us. I was a little annoyed, and even more annoyed that after 2 fast dances it was time for the slow dance and Linda jumped into Mark's arms. I had a cup of coffee, and after the slow dance, they separated and Linda went back to our table and I stayed at the bar for my coffee. I walked over and as I approached they both stood up. "Did you guys have a good time?" Linda said they left. Mark left through the front door without the blonde. June came back, but Linda wasn't with her. I asked where she was. "Tom, Linda isn't here, she left with Mark." "Are you kidding me?" I went back to the table and June was talking to the others. "Do y'all know what she's doing?" June said, "Tom, you have to let her stay the night, she'll be back for you tomorrow." The table erupted when I said that. They all thought I was being too harsh, so I yelled at them, "I don't want anything more to do with any of you, and you all know that no one is mourning for me, so maybe I can stop her, and now she's going to lose everything in one night." I walked up to the front desk and saw a blonde woman sitting at a table with 4 other people that came with Stevens, and she was crying, and I asked her, "Are you his girlfriend?" "Yes, I was his girlfriend, but not anymore." "Where did they go?" "I'm sorry, is that your wife?" The key word here is yes. I said he'd be done with her in the morning and take her home. He likes to gloat over his husband. What an idiot. I gave May my card and told her to call me. She laughed but cried and I left. I took my jacket but left Linda's. I went to my hotel room and got my suitcase but left Linda behind. I checked out. I drove home with a plan forming in my head. I wish I'd thought of it before Linda left. I drove into the garage, went inside and turned on the security system. I put on my black underwear, a black hoodie, dark gray sweatpants, old sneakers and 2 pairs of gloves, and a mask, and when I was fully dressed, I took the rope and went up to the attic. I ran and jumped the fence next to me and followed the path to the workshop, went inside and grabbed a backpack, some extra pairs of wool socks, a pocket knife and an old hand axe that was deep in the toolbox. Crossed the bridge over the river and headed in the direction of Cherry Lane. I saw a house with a statue of a soccer player and a red Escalade parked out front. The alarm went off, then I jumped onto the porch and hid behind a post by the door. I pounded him in the head with an axe, and as he passed me he fell and crawled up. I pounded the axe with both hands and returned to close the front door and ran out. I jumped over the stone wall and got back to my bike, put on my wool socks, put my axe, knife, gloves and shoes in my backpack, zipped it up, jumped in the saddle and flew down to the river. It had rained the day before and the current was strong, so I rode my bike back in the direction of the house, through the nearby forest, to the studio. I wiped down the windowsills with a rag, then ran down to the basement with a rope, stripped off all my clothes, including my mask and gloves, and put them in the washing machine, then took a short shower in the basement bathroom and washed everything twice. I put on the clothes I had worn the night before at the club, went down to the basement, put the wet clothes in the dryer, went upstairs and prepared a snack and drank a glass of whiskey. Then I sat for a while longer thinking about the problem, and when the dryer stopped I took the clothes upstairs and put everything back in its place. 50A. I went downstairs and sat on the couch, drank more whiskey, and fell asleep. B. I went downstairs and sat on the couch, drank more whiskey, and then fell asleep. C. I went downstairs and sat on the couch. D. I went downstairs and sat down. At 6:02 a.m., I was awakened by the doorbell. I looked at the camera on the door and saw 2 people, an African-American woman and a short white man. The doorbell rang again and I opened the door. "Who are you guys? You look like cops," I said. "I'm Detective Asper and this is Detective Logan." The black woman said they flashed their badges and I made a face of uncertainty. "Does this have anything to do with Linda?" "Where's Linda? Did you bring her in?" "No sir, she's in shock. She's being treated at the hospital." I paused for a moment. I looked at them and they looked at me. I pointed to the couch and said, "Please sit down," but they were sitting in two separate chairs with straight backs, so I used the couch. I said, "What have you been doing since your wife and Stevens left the club?" I asked again. "Logan, just tell me what's been going on," and Asper replied, "No, you just have to answer my questions." "I think I can prove to you that I'm here. Let me go upstairs," and I suggested that they follow me into the upstairs office, and I sat down at the computer desk, and I showed them the system, and they watched me from 6 p.m. and I showed them a glimpse of it, and the system was targeting 3 doors, the front side, and the sliding patio doors that lead to the pool, and there was no doors on the side that I was walking on, and it looked out over the woods, and there were 2 large windows, and neither of them were open, and there was no surveillance, 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 and there was no surveillance. So no surveillance there. Okay, but I can't give it away for more than a day. It's a work computer. I need it. I have a place to put it, but it won't last long. Look at me. I'm going to download a few things onto this external hard drive, including the stuff I just gave you," and as I was talking they wanted to take a look around, and I allowed it, but insisted they stay together, with me, and they snapped a few pictures, and then left. 10 a.m. I called Linda's parents, John and Stephanie, who lived next door but were at the lake house at the time, and I told them what had happened, and that the police said that Linda was in shock at the hospital, and that John was simply shocked at what Linda had done, and that Stephanie probably wasn't so surprised, but that it wasn't my fault, and that apparently he'd done this many times before, and that when she got out of the hospital, she'd have to stay away from my house, and that we could arrange to have her things removed, and he said that was cruel. Tom and Stephanie added that it wasn't as cruel as what was done to me, and I replied that was the end of the conversation, and then I called my parents in Florida and told them as much as I could about what was going on, and they too were shocked by Linda's behavior, and she asked me if she was in shock at the hospital, and the police told me that you'd seen her, and I answered which hospital she was at, and she asked me if I didn't know, and that I wasn't going to date her. Wasn't going to go out with her either. "Come on, she needs your support." Judy said, "She'll never have my support. I don't care if her big night is ruined if it is," I retorted. Judy hung up. I showered again and got dressed and went to the babysitter's house to pick up the kids. It was about 8:20. "I don't think she's coming today. She has things she has to do. Let's just get through the day without her," I said. I took them to the soccer field where there were games at noon and 1 p.m. After the game we got ice cream and went home. I had a couple of texts on my cell phone that I had put on mute while I played with the girls. One was from Linda's parents telling me she was on Judah Street and not responding. I told the girls their mom was in the hospital. She wasn't hurt but traumatized by what happened the night before, and I wanted to know what happened. I told them, "Your mom went to his house last night with a famous soccer player." I called the doctor, Laura Thompson, and she said that Linda was traumatized and was in a catatonic state, and I asked her if she wanted to bring the kids in, and she hesitated. "I really don't want to see her at all, and I think you know why, but I can bring the kids if you think it would help." "Do they know what's going on?" "I mean the circumstances surrounding it." "You mean the closeness between Linda and the football player?" "Yes." I told them they were dressed and ready to go. "If you thought it would help Linda, I could take them." "Okay, meet me in room 31 in 30 minutes. She said. "We're on our way." Dr. Thompson is in her late 40s. She's a psychiatrist, and she said it might be helpful to meet the girls. Did they want to meet her? They did. Went, and I led them to the door and looked inside. Linda was sitting on the bed, staring at cartoons on the TV. The girls approached her hesitantly. Laura, the oldest one, touched her hand and called out for her mom. I walked over and took her in my arms and looked at Linda and said nothing. I took Laura's hand and led them towards the exit. "We tried." I said, "Will she wake up?" I reassured her that she would wake up. I knew it probably wouldn't be soon, and the doctor said, "Girls, I'll be sure to let you know when she wakes up." Maybe I shouldn't have taken them, but I just wanted to see Linda and see if their presence would help. Even though I reacted rudely to her cheating, I didn't want her to cheat. I'm so sorry, even though she deserves to suffer, but not like this. When I got home, I made them scrambled eggs and toast, and I purposely involved them in the cooking, pretending I needed help. He was a public defender and was very good at his job. He said there was no way I could get a police report, but he knew that ambulance mileage reports were public. I asked him to answer if I could. An hour later my lawyer friend called back. He said he had emailed information about calling an ambulance, and I told him about the police visit. The police may apply for a search warrant or they may talk to me again, and he advised me to get a lawyer if needed. After I read the earwig, the police found Linda with Stevens' head in her lap, covered in blood and wearing only a thin robe. She was unresponsive when the ambulance arrived, and on the way to the hospital an officer stayed with her and asked her if she saw who did it, but he got no answer, which made me sick and made me wonder if she would ever recover. I looked up post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which I have looked into myself, and I have researched shock-induced catatonia, and it seems that people usually recover from catatonia, but can also suffer from PTSD for years. She gave me her cell phone number in case the police arrived early, which they did not. My daughters and I had a great time on Sunday, trying to convince them that Linda would eventually come back, but still needed our help. On Monday, I dropped the kids off at school and I followed the local news coverage of the Stevens murder. Linda's name wasn't mentioned, but it was reported that Stevens was entertaining a married woman when he was attacked outside his home. A neighbor called the police when she heard Linda's screams. I told her the whole story and gave her a copy of the ambulance report. She was shocked and stared at me. I looked back at her and simply said the police have a copy of the CCTV footage and it has not been tampered with. She said, "This is Joanne Drake. I'm calling about Tom Choate. I was wondering if I could have his work computer back." "No, I think you've had enough time to see if there's been any changes." "You know, there hasn't been any." "Well, I'll send someone out to pick it up from you in the morning." "No, I'll send someone out from the office. He won't be coming." I held up my hand and said I'll be there. She nodded. "Well, he'll be there at 9 o'clock. She hung up and I told her I wouldn't talk to the police, and if there was any conversation I would have my cell phone with me to record it. I told them that if their mom didn't come home I would have to learn how to cook, which caused them to laugh. I'm actually a good cook, I've just never done it at home. And that's when her sister came upstairs, and Laura asked me if I could ever forgive my mom for having an intimate relationship with another man, and maybe I said that I really didn't know at this point, and that I was just trying to make her feel better. Mr. J, this is Jim from the Tribune. Beeman. Hi. I said we have information that it was your wife Linda who was with Mark Stevens when he was killed. Can you confirm that? I don't want this to get out to the public. My 2 kids are in school and they could get in trouble if this gets out. So can you confirm that? What do you think about the death of your wife's lover? I understand what you're saying. If anything you publish causes any harm to my family, I'll sue you in your paper. I'm sorry, I have to go. There was a knock on the door and I saw a young woman with a microphone on the camera, and I got on the intercom and I said, "Get out, you're trespassing on someone else's property. I'm calling the police. Is your wife there, Mr. Jott?" They did come and chase 6 people off the porch, but they didn't get very far before 4 trucks came, and I called my doctor and told her to make sure Linda was safe until the press got here, and I called my attorney Joan to get her opinion, and she said that if I wanted to she'd put out a statement to the press to see if that would calm tensions, and we arranged for a statement, and she said that I don't comment on rumors about my wife, and wouldn't comment on them in the future. She also said that if the media continued to show up outside of our home, it would be damaging to our family, and we would take legal action. I'm looking at it. Police say that Mark Stevens was attacked outside of his home and stabbed to death with a sharp object, and they say that while there was a woman in the house at the time, there's no indication she witnessed the attack, and they say that the investigation is still ongoing. In fact, it appears that he stayed at his home all night long, some distance away from where the incident took place. In fact, he appears to have stayed in his house all night, some distance from the incident. The reporter asked what happened to the other married women and their husbands. We thoroughly investigated the allegation that Mr. Stevens regularly seduced married women and found it to be true. The police left amidst the screams, and I'd made arrangements with the girls' school to have their homework delivered here or sent to them on the computer over the next few days, and I'd called Linda's parents to tell them to watch out for the press. But no one had shown up yet, and they'd also disappeared off our street on Tuesday, and Asper had said that she wanted to talk to me after I'd met up with Linda, and I'd agreed. And Linda seemed to be in a daze, and she smiled, and the Linda seemed to be In a daze she smiled and greeted the girls and hugged them, but she didn't look at me. The girls told her about the TV trucks at school, but then Linda seemed to fall asleep. The doctor said we should put her to bed, and I think you should let her rest. What punishment could she possibly get other than what happened? It's not a question of punishment, it's a question of respect and trust. One would never trust her, and I would never respect her, and maybe she would never respect me either. Asper laughed and said she may or may not be afraid of you. You're just trying to lure me, and you know I had nothing to do with the attack on Stevens. You know we have security footage of Stevens' house. It's not my problem. I wasn't there. I'll see you later. It sounded like a threat. Over the next few days, Linda gradually resumed her normal behavior. On the fourth day, Linda was being discharged from the hospital. She asked to speak to me alone, so I sent the kids away. I'm sorry. What I did put you in an awkward position, and I don't think an apology is going to help. Linda, I can't tell you how humiliating this is for me now that it's on the national news. I'd like to be discharged this afternoon and go home. I don't want to ruin the girls' lives any more than I already have. Maybe I can just slip away now, she said without looking up. I'm going to go contact the security guards. I can't say I believe you, and I won't believe everything you've told me. In fact, I can't trust you anymore, but we can see where this goes. Okay, I love you, she said, and I just turned around and walked out, and I went to the hospital security office and arranged for a car to go to the back of the building to pick up Linda and drop her off at my house, which was scheduled for 4:00 p.m. Everything went well and she got home around 4:45. The kids and her parents were with me, and I made a bed for myself in the office and Linda slept in our room. I know, but I want to know if we really loved each other for so long. If she loved me, she wouldn't have done this. She said they didn't have intercourse, she said. So how do I know she was with him for a long time? If he didn't use protection, there could have been repercussions. She could have been sick or pregnant. Dan, I don't like that idea. She can stay here for now, but you might soon want to look for other solutions. We go back to the house and we all have pizza. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I made a mistake, but I don't understand. He's just a soccer player. I've met him. He's not our dad. Not a dad. I'll talk to you about him later when I find out more. The girls went to bed and Linda went to the kitchen. I followed her after about 10 minutes. He said, "That's open file too." I told him to get it. Linda drank a Pepsi. It's not recommended that she drink alcohol as it can. It's not recommended that she drink alcohol because it can cause a relapse. And she asked if you'd sleep in our room. No, in the office. Well, you're welcome to come by any time. We're just going to have to take it one step at a time now. 0 a.m. I made coffee. A friend of mine sent me a copy of the autopsy report from Stevens' office. I read it over, paying special attention to the trauma analysis. The samples were sent off to be analyzed. I sent the kids off to school almost like I always do, but they're a little upset. I've spent a lot of time thinking about my options. If it weren't for Linda's illness, I would never have let her go to school. Linda's illness, I would never have let her back in the house. I smiled and waved at her and warned her to stay out of my territory. I went inside and Linda baked some cookies and gave me one and I took it. There's a TV truck outside. They don't know you're here. Maybe they shouldn't. They want to know. What do they want to do? They've already published my name and what I did at his house. What I did at his house. Can they hurt me again? No, sure, what they can come up with. I look at her. I'm trying to figure out what to do about you and us. If it's too sad, skip this part and write later. I'll do my best. I still need to call and find out if I still have a job. Why would they fire you for cheating on me? Why would they care about me? I went to my office and started working on the autopsy materials. I'm sure I'll get the results back, but it could be a few days. Linda acted normal around me. That much I know, but I think she must have had questions about what happened. Our daily life went on for 2 days until I got the results back, so she probably lied about that night. I'm waiting to see what she's going to write to me about what happened, but I couldn't imagine going on with her as a wife. The next day, after dinner, Linda came into my office and I finished the hard copy she handed me, and when the slow dance started, I really didn't want to think about anything. He pulled me to him and honestly, I wanted to just give myself to him. I don't know why he's so attracted to me, but he is, and he let me sneak out of the side door and we went to his house and he told me that I'd have to, and I believed him. And when the dance was over, I went back to his house and he said that I'd have to go to his house, and he said that I'd have to go to his house when the dance was over. And I came back to our table. You weren't there, and I agreed to go to the ladies' room with June, and when you came back I saw you were angry, but I thought you'd get over it eventually, and I wanted Mark so bad. We ended up on top of him, and as we were finishing up, the car alarm went off and he told me to wait there, and I looked out the window but I didn't see anything, and on the roof of the porch I saw someone in black running away, and the man jumped the fence and I saw him The man jumped the fence and I found an elk and went to the front door and he was lying in the driveway and I ran over to see him and his head was smashed. I was in a trance, just stunned and shocked, and the police came and I remember I was in the hospital and I'm so sorry for all of this and I love you and I don't know why I did what I did. And Linda, I looked up at her and the tears were streaming down her face. And Tom, you're the man that Tom, are you the man I saw? Of course, the police told you I was here. They have security footage. That's what they said when I asked. But I can tell you I think Stevens got what he deserved. No, Tom, he didn't get what he deserved. He was a good man. He turned your world upside down, didn't he, Tom? I thought the man I married would never do what you did. Was it worth it? What have you lost? She turned and ran out of the room. No, you killed him. I muttered. After that our relationship grew cold. I decided to stop trying to convince her that I was innocent and to try to make amends to her in any way. She just told me that if Stevens hadn't been killed it would have been worth it for her. The consequences of that night, maybe it wasn't the way it was said, but I filed for divorce a couple of weeks later. I asked for custody of the kids so that they could live at home. Linda still had a job, so I didn't ask for alimony, child support, or free visitation. Linda was recovering well and I insisted she move out. She went to visit her parents. I dropped her off at her parents' house shortly after her father called. He wanted me to take the papers away. Linda was desperate. I told him she deserved to be desperate and should go to an attorney. I made some mac and cheese and we and the kids. I made some mac and cheese and we ate it with the kids, and we played some board games with them and then we put them to bed. And Linda wanted to talk about it, but I wasn't in the mood to talk about it, and we've got to get it over with, Tom, and it's not going to do the kids any good if we're separated. I don't want to get a divorce. I made a mistake, okay? It was a big mistake, but I love you and we're not going to be able to stay married after you're having a blatant intimate relationship behind my back. Just forget about it and get on with your life. And Linda's starting to cry. Don't cry, just cry quietly. I really feel sorry for her. Just cry quietly. I really felt sorry for her, but not enough to change my mind. After the divorce we reached a joint custody agreement and Linda got an apartment with a large second bedroom for her daughters. The two of us developed a detached and friendly relationship, focusing on the daughters, and after about 4 months I started dating women in our circle, and women from work. I stayed away from married women, although some of them seemed eager to sleep with me, but after my experience I thought it was immoral to do so. Linda got along well with the girls, but not so well on her own. She took antidepressants and slept a lot. She takes antidepressants and sleeps a lot, but she's still able to go to work and finish her homework. Her parents and daughters tell me that after 10 years she isn't dating anymore. Shelley is off to college, and Laura is about to start her freshman year. She was divorced with 2 kids at home. Her husband moved to the West Coast. She was 35 when we met. Her kids were still in school. The twins left for college when they were in the 2nd grade. I told her about Mark Stevens' death, but of course I didn't tell her how he died, and that riot eventually subsided, and no one was ever arrested or charged. And one Saturday, Detective Logan came over to my house, and I asked him to come in, and I was home alone at the time, and it was just for one night. She's just doing what a lot of other married women do when that idiot seduces them, you know. If they met somewhere and committed adultery in private, maybe we'd be okay with that. I'm fine. I've got a boyfriend, kind of a friend. I know you're doing well with Cody. Yeah. We'll probably move in together when our kids are gone. And Linda whispers, I wish it hadn't happened. We're empty nesters now. We could use a little help. Empty nesters now. We could use some real fun. I've never regretted doing that. It's probably saved a lot of marriages. It's one of the most effective acts of altruism I've ever performed. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please consider bookmarking and subscribing if you haven't already. Please feel free to share your thoughts on these events in the comments below.